YouTube, my name is Paige, and I can't tell if you can tell, but I'm sick. So I will try to power through this as much as I can because I really want to discuss this book with you, Allegiant by Veronica Roth. And I know that the only way I'm going to get through all of my feels and emotions is if I talk about it. So come hell or high water, I will post this today. I will do it. Sorry if my voice just sounds miserable, because that's how I feel. Basically, I can't review this without being spoilery. So, if you want to read this and you have not read Divergent or Insurgent yet, now is your time to leave. I only say that it is such a great book and I highly recommend this series. Even though there are so many mixed feelings about this last book, that's all I'm going to say. So come back when you read it, okay? Okay, bye! Okay, so if you're still here, obviously you just want to ruin your whole life, or you have read the book and you have come to share the feels of Allegiant. So many feels. I wish there was just question marks all around me because I don't know how I feel about it. There are so many mixed emotions. But let's just start with one thing at a time. So first I want to talk about the different points of views that Veronica Roth uses throughout this. The first two books we've had just Triss's point of view, and now we have Tobias's point of view. And I don't know how I feel about that because it was very hard for me going back and forth. Usually I don't have a problem, but they almost sounded so similar to where it was hard switching every chapter and trying to really grow an attachment to a certain character's way of thinking when one minute you're trying to get into this character and then the next minute you're thrown into someone else different but still sounds similar. And there was a couple times where I was reading it and I would forget that it was either Tobias or Triss's point of view, and someone would say something and I'd be like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, I'm so confused, and I'd have to start over again because maybe it was my sick mental state or whatever, but I just couldn't get into it. Another reason why I think I couldn't get into it for a while was because the first half of the book, not a lot happens, and it's a lot of information being thrown at you with little action, and so it was kind of hard just to stay focused. It was interesting. I'm not going to say it wasn't interesting, but with the other two books being so jam-packed with action, it wasn't there. It took me about halfway through the book, maybe even a little bit more than halfway, to really get into it. So I think one of the major story plots and points that bothered me the most wasn't the ending, which I think everyone might be surprised with. It's more of the whole dynamic of Caleb. So I understand in Insurgent he was willing to kill off Triss, but the way that Triss continues to react to it, I don't agree with. Like, I would be so freaking mad at my brother. Like, words cannot describe how mad I would be. But there comes a point where he's your family, he's your brother. Like, I would never be willing to have him sacrifice himself to make it up to me. That would never be an option. And the fact that even Triss thought about that until the very last second made me really upset about her. It made me feel that she was very selfish. And that's a side of Triss that I haven't really seen before. She's been selfish, but she's been selfish for the greater good. And this time I felt that that was just her own personal revenge, and she was just being selfish. It made me really upset with Triss as the character. Yes, Caleb is flawed. He's not my favorite person, but I ended up feeling sorry for him. I mean, there's two sides to every story, and this side is obviously through Triss's side. We don't get to see everything that happened with Caleb and his mindset and everything when he was in Eurydice. And I think it's unfair the way that she treated him without even giving him a chance to explain himself. And then, in order to make it up for her, sacrifice himself and die? Like, you've lost your mom, you've lost your dad. She makes this whole big deal out of the whole series about wanting to, do what her parents would want her to do. What would her mom want her to do? Is she happy? Are they happy with her? Do you really think that your parents would be happy if you sacrificed your brother for yourself? Like, I had a big problem with that. Another way that I thought Tris was actually pretty selfish was in this whole fight between Tobias and Tris after he goes off and does his own thing and she's pissed about him. Understandably, if I were Tris, I'd be upset at Tobias too because one of our friends got hurt. But it was just one of those things to where, again, not trying to understand Tobias's point of view. He was going through a lot. He thought that he was damaged, and I'll get to more on that later. I did, however, like the way that they settled it. It basically happened really fast, and it wasn't even really a settlement. It was just like, I don't even know how to explain it. It just it didn't feel real to me. It just didn't feel real, and maybe that goes back to the differing point of views. I wish there was something more to it, because I just thought that she was being selfish, and I think Tobias hit it on the nail of she was just more pissed that he didn't listen to what she said. And I thought that she was very wrong in the fact that she's just like, well, I'm always right, so you should just always listen to me. People need to make their own mistakes, or else they're never learn to grow and do things. And I mean, in this book, they're only 16 and 18. God knows there's plenty more mistakes to be made. But I liked the way they settled it, and the fact of Tris just came to the realization that if you love someone, you love them with all their faults, and I'm just not going to let this get between me and Tobias. I thought it sent a good message of relationships are not perfect, but you have to work through them, and you have to take the good in with the bad. Because you take the good, you take the bad, put them all together, and then you have the facts of life. The facts of life. So I don't know how I felt about Four's point of view in the fact of we've seen him through the last two books just be this really strong character. Then through this book, he just kind of crumbles. And while I liked seeing a little bit of his vulnerability, there was just some times that I'm just like, come on, your genes are technically damaged, but that doesn't mean you are. Your choices and what you have done have made you just such a great person and such a great leader. And, I don't understand how he can't think of all the things that he's done. But at the same time, you understand where he's coming from because, he has had this mother that's abandoned him and his father that was abusive. I can imagine that when you go through that, you don't come out having the greatest sense of self, and you don't feel like, well, if I was so great, why did all this happen? So the ending, boy, it was emotional. You don't read a lot of YA books where either the main protagonist or the female or male interest ends up dying. It's emotional either way, and I can't remember when the last time that the protagonist died. While it was upsetting, I understand what Veronica Roth was trying to do. In the fact of Tris is a very, as much as I've been saying she's been selfish lately, in general throughout the series she has been very selfless. In the fact that she is willing to risk her life in order to make things better for the greater good. So it makes sense that in the end this is what would happen to her. At first though, I didn't really believe that this was what was happening. She ends up being shot, sees Dave and sees her mother. She could just be hallucinating. That's what I think. And it's not until all of a sudden that we jump to Four's chapter and, he gets to the end and he comes back to the compound and Tris isn't there and Christina and Kara have to tell him and he just completely just destroys. And then as the reader, I destroyed along with him. That was one of the moments that I really connected with Four. Tears just streaming down my face. On top of all this sinus and cold and everything going on, you can imagine how just more miserable it made me. And I just wanted to film a little bit of my reaction, but it would just have been more of a hot mess than what this is right now. It was one of those things where I didn't believe it until it happened. It was beautifully tragic the rest of the series, because you then see 4 reminiscing on she was the first one to jump down into the net, and, you know, reliving that memory temporarily. And then it goes on to, you know, showing him and the others living out their lives. Let's be real. If Caleb was the one to sacrifice himself, Tris would not have been able to live with herself. Afterwards, she probably would have had regret. And who knows what that would have done to her. But again, I applaud Veronica Roth for what she did, because that was very realistic, and it was true to her character. It just wasn't some freak accident. It was just Tris being herself. I love the overall message in this book that Veronica Roth was trying to create. And what I interpreted it to be was that, you know, technically we're all flawed. Even if you're genetically pure, that's not what defines them, and it's their decisions and the choices that they make throughout their life that defines them. So I really have mixed feelings about this book. It wasn't as great as Insurgent or Divergent. Without the ending, I probably would have given it about 3.5 stars. It was enough to keep me kind of entertained because I wanted to see what happened, but it wasn't the greatest that I've read, especially from this series. But then the ending happens, and I just gotta respect her for doing it. So on Goodreads, I gave it 5 stars, because after reading the ending, I couldn't give it anything less than 5 stars. The emotional reaction I got from it, the message I got from it. So feel free to comment below and tell me how you feel, because there are a lot of feels and a lot of controversy and differing opinions, and I would love to hear them. So please comment below. You can also follow me on Twitter and Goodreads, and I now have a Tumblr. Yeah, I know, late in the game, right? So I finally have those that I can link down below. And yeah, so I look forward to talking to you, and next time I talk to you, I won't be sounding as miserable as I am. Okay, so I'll see you later. Bye! Whoa, what was this? Bye!